my guest for today. What we're going for is a pretty bright balayage, but we're going to focus a lot of the brightness in front of her face, and then we'll do like kind of poppy pieces throughout. What I'm going to do is go around her hairline with foils and then do like Teasylights throughout so that it's super blended, and it's going to allow me to control exactly where the placement is going. And then since it's in foils, she'll be able to get a lot brighter result at the end. So I'm mixing up Schwarzkopf Blonde Me Lightener. I like this lightener because it comes with a bond builder already in it, so I don't need to put Olaplex or anything. I also don't have to worry about my client's hair in the process. Typically I would start out with 7 volume, but right now I'm going to start off with 7 and 20 mixed, just because I want to be able to break through her natural pigment, and I don't think that 7 would immediately do the job. So it's mixed 1 to 2, so I'm just going to do half and half. I want to say that Blonde Me's mixing ratio is variable. I always do 1 to 2, but I'm pretty sure you can do 1 to 2 or 1 to 1.5. So if you like a different consistency, I'm pretty sure that you can mix it differently. Also, you want to make sure that you're following the manufacturer's recommendations, but I've never had any like swelling or anything crazy with Blonde Me, which is another reason I like it. It doesn't swell too much when you mix it with the dedicated developer. So I just did a rough cut to make sure that we can see exactly where all of the color is going to lay, and that we're not coloring anything that we're going to be taking off anyway. I like to put texture in the hair to see exactly where the layers are, because you don't want to color something and then take it off and then have a chunk of dark underneath it. You kind of want to see where everything's going to go. So sometimes I've seen people do just a base cut, but you really want to get some of those layers in there so that you can really be intentional about your placement. So I did 5 sections. This is pretty much how I section a lot of the things that I do, especially when I'm highlighting. So I wanted to make sure that I'm focusing on her hairline. So everybody's hairline has this recession area, and I like to kind of part it off at that area so that you can be really mindful that of what hair that you're putting in a foil. I want to make sure that all of the brightness is even around their face, so those areas, it's easy to skip that hair, and then when they pull their hair back it's a dark streak, so you just want to make sure that you're sectioning it in a way that you don't forget those pieces. And then also it just makes you work cleaner and speeds up your time a little bit in the long run. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start around her hairline. I'm going to do both of the sides first, and then I'm going to go to the front, just so that everything in this area is processing at once and it'll be the brightest. What I like to do when I'm highlighting this first part is I just take my comb and get out any little tiny baby hairs. You don't want to lighten those, because when they pull their hair back, or if those don't get up into a ponytail, they'll look like breakage, and so that's just, everybody has those, so you don't want it to look like they've fried their hair off. So even though we're going for a balayage look, I am going to do these pieces close up around her hairline so that they stay brighter and give her longevity with the color, so that she doesn't have to come back in all the time. But at the end we're going to root smudge everything so that it's a lot more lived in. It's not going to be super bright pieces around her face. So I'm just going to do a couple more weaves like that. You can see it's super fine. If you were to put a newspaper under it, you can still read through it. Some people slice all around the hairline. I don't like to do that because I think that it gives them a really harsh grow out. But you can see all of the hair that I left out. It's not a whole lot, so it's just going to be enough to blend it in so that they, again, get longevity out of it. But they're still going to have that super bright piece in the front. So rule of thumb for me on how far to go back with the bright pieces that are going all the way up to the scalp for her money piece is you want to go as far as her recession. So that kind of like ends right here where she starts to have like longer pieces. So we'll make sure that these are blonde, and I'll probably do that when I do this section. Alright, so what I've done is sectioned off her front area that's going to be a part of her like money piece, and what I did was make sure that on each side she's going to have the same amount of concentrated blonde in that area, because if I were to have gone straight across, she wouldn't have enough on this side, and then this would have been way too blonde. So by doing sort of like a deep moon shape, she's going to have an even amount of blonde on each side, and that's just going to give her balance so that she can part her hair where she likes, and she said she always parts her hair right there. If somebody that flips it or something, I would do a pretty uniform sectioning, and I would have made both of the sections even, but you can tell kind of they're a little bit off balance, but she needs that because she has far less hair on this side, so she needs a little bit more of that area to be concentrated with the highlights. And again, I'm going to pull her hair back, and then all these like super tiny fine hairs, I'm going to make sure they're not getting highlighted. Alright, so you can see I've done a couple of these already, but I'm doing a very, very small baby light just after that stronger money piece, and that's just going to make sure that it doesn't look like that came out of nowhere and it's a completely separate color. So these are going to lay like super subtly, and it's just going to be enough so that it eases the transition from the money piece to the rest of her hair, and then I'm going to go ahead and start doing the Teasylights on the side. Alright, so I'm going to do diagonal back sections. What I'm going to do, I'm probably going to make that one a little bit smaller because you want to make sure that everything around the hairline is the brightest so that when she pulls her hair up it looks consistent. I'm just going to take the hair, and for me in this front piece I want a decent amount of the blonde to go high up. So I'm going to tease it from up here because that will preserve enough hair in the ends to lighten. And then she'll have a blonder piece around her face. And I like to do mine, some people use like a rule of thumb where they just do it a couple of times, but I pretty much will tease mine until no more hair is going up. And then this one I am going to do a super fine weave. As I'm applying this, I am still balayaging it even though we did the teasing. The teasing will help a lot with blending, but you still want to make sure that just in case you're applying it softer as it goes up, and then you can fully saturate on the bottom. So on this section I am going to drop some of the hair down just to make sure it keeps me in check that I'm leaving a low light because I don't want her to be solid blonde on her ends. We definitely still want some dimension in there. I never used to do Teasylights, but I found a product that helps with the detangling, and honestly, like, the tangles fall right out. And before, I felt like it was such a stress on my guests, even if it was the best approach for them, that at the end they'd be like, oh my gosh, I just got my scalp ripped out for half an hour trying to get these all out. But it's not like that anymore, so I'll show you guys the product that I've been using. So I moved on from the back. I did the same pattern through the top. The only thing that I did differently was I bumped up my developers, so I did 20 and 30, and I just mixed up again, and I'm on to 30 now, and that's so that everything gets done at about the same time. I may pull some of the front foils, depending on how they look, but here in the back, you want to make sure that since we did brighter around her hairline, you don't want her hair to be dark when she pulls it up from the back. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and tease it again. And this one doesn't need to go super high up. I just want to make sure that you can see the brightness if her hair was in a ponytail. And also this helps so that when they pull their hair around to the front, that there isn't the streak of dark at the bottom. So her hair is thicker through the back. So what I like to do for that is do a bunch of detail work in the front where her hair is finer, because those are the things that she's obviously going to see, and it's better to do a whole lot of detail work on the finer sections of hair. The finer sections of hair, especially in the front, are super unforgiving, whereas in the back she's got more hair to work with, so if something's just a little off, which it shouldn't be, but just in case, you're not going to see that as much because her hair will blend. So in this area, I like to do bigger sections as far as my weaving patterns, because that's going to create more impact for her. If I did tiny sections, it's going to get lost anyway. And for now, I'm just going horizontally, just like I said, she's got so much hair in the back. Doing it diagonally would be a little bit too much softness. So you want to think of a horizontal section as like a blockade, like you're not really going to be able to see anything under it if you didn't weave it out and add dimension, whereas a slanting pattern is going to be softer because you'll be able to see more points of the hair. product that I was talking about that makes it super easy to comb out teasing in somebody's hair. So I typically use like a quarter size amount on each section of their head, and then I just work it right into where I teased. And I did shampoo first. Some people don't with this product, but I kind of try to just manipulate the teasing so that it's kind of just naturally falling out on its own. And then this product is acidic, and that's really good for your hair. It helps lay down the cuticle, and so it'll be a nice base for toning, but also when I sit her up and kind of comb everything out, it makes everything so much easier because it's already relaxed so much of it. Also, her hair texture is really good for this technique. If somebody had super baby fine hair, I probably wouldn't do this because it is going to be a whole lot harder to get the teasing out. Root, I did use the 13 volume, and then I used the 6 volume on her ends. I like to do the 13 volume if I'm doing a root shadow, just because the consistency is easier to work with for that. And then also, I feel like her natural could use just like a slight bump. Technically, a demi-permanent color won't actually bump your base, but I found that it does just a little bit if it like catches the light or something. So she's still gonna feel the same. Her natural is the same, but in the light, it's going to reflect a little bit brighter, especially with the highlights in there. You definitely want to try to let your toner sit on for the full processing time, so that's like 15 to 20 minutes in Schwarzkopf, and that'll give you the best tone development, and it'll give them the longest longevity out of it.